So today we're going to start with just a few slides, and then we'll get into a live demo, and then return back to the slide deck a little bit later. The agenda is as follows. A quick solution overview. What is BrightWork 365? We'll get into, and then the rest of this is basically ways that I think potentially could help you to achieve control over your project. So that includes standardized project management templates that BrightWork 365 includes out of the box. Doing risk management, baselining projects. That's something that's done after planning. We'll talk just a bit about that. Issue management. What's a project without issues? I used to always kind of think out loud and to myself that project management actually is. It all kind of boils down to issue management, unfortunately. A few weeks into the project, but there are ways to mitigate that. And then status reporting, which is a way to control projects, to control communications, expectations of stakeholders, etc. So and by the way, hopefully I'll remember to. I'm going to keep coming back to the agenda each time we finish a section to kind of remind us what we're going into next. So the first one is the solution overview. Briefly, just to kind of explain what is BrightWork 365. Actually, first, what is BrightWork? BrightWork's been around for quite a long time, over 29 years experience. Started with Lotus Notes, went into uh, project management on SharePoint, which we still do as well, and for quite some time now, working with Microsoft 365. Uh, the product itself, 365, it brings all of these elements together. It brings all of the Microsoft 365 suite. We really make use of what you see here, at the very least. So there's Microsoft Teams integration, SharePoint Online. We're using Active Directory, of course, and then the Microsoft Office suite. Now, all of this would be within your organization's tenant. It's not data that we're housing, it's data that belongs to you. And then as far as the Microsoft Power Platform piece, which is a big part of this, we're using Power Apps, we're using Power BI. That's an optional piece that if your subscription has it, we'll talk a bit about that later. You don't need to have Power BI, but it is just a value add that we include in terms of reports that make use of the Power BI. Power Automate for a bunch of workflows, and the Microsoft Dataverse where your data is stored. And again, that's within your tenants. So moving away a bit from the technology, just kind of talking about our project management approach. We call it Start Evolve. So basically, you'd be working with our customer success partners. They're on staff here at BrightWork, and they would help you to get started quickly with project management using Microsoft 365, but not ending there. There really is no end point. It's starting and then it's evolving over time. So it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And you'll have a customer success partner with you along the way. So that includes processes to improve project management, as well as the software to help you implement those processes. Okay, now into the agenda proper. So why are we even talking about this today? Like, why is this important? What's the business case or use case for project control? Well, some ideas here. Of course, it goes beyond this, but let's just start with these 4 points here. So it's a way of avoiding repeating previous mistakes and to mitigate risks that could be present on the project, whatever project you're dealing with right now. And the way that you can avoid repeating these previous mistakes are through the use of standardized project templates. So instead of having like a wild west of all these different elements of what makes up a project, you can decide for your organization or for your division in an organization what should be the standard for project management. We'll touch on that a bit. Applying prior lessons learned today, right? There's always things that can be improved. You should celebrate the great things that happen in the project, but definitely take a time to reflect on what could be done better. Um, and to manage and mitigate risks. uh, Basically to prevent these things called risks or potential risks from turning into issues that could have a major effect on your project. And we'll get into that as well. Um, you could track scheduling commitments, and this would keep projects on track. So again, you could help control your projects by creating what's called a baseline for your projects. So pretty much, I don't want to get too much. I don't want to give it away right now, but a way to kind of say we're set, everything looks good before we start the project execution. Let's baseline it. This is what we all agreed to. We'll talk a bit about that later, but that's one way to control. You can keep issues that can affect time, quality, cost, etc. You fill in the blanks from falling through the cracks. So if you tightly manage and mitigate issues, and all the best planning in the world, it's still going to lead to issues. You just can't control machinery, software to a certain extent, people, of course, weather, you name it. So it'll be a way to kind of at least mitigate those issues. And finally, if you achieve project control, you will keep your stakeholders in the loop to avoid surprises. And of course, waning project support, which could really be serious. If stakeholders start to get suspicious about what's going on or how things are going, even if it's bad, even bad news needs to be communicated, keep people in the loop. And a way that you can achieve that is through status reporting. And let's move on here. So we will now get into the demo. So this is good, the live piece of this. So let me bring up my screen here. So actually, before we get into the app, I just want to point out, now that you see my screen, um, all of the BrightWork webinars, like you're sitting through today, you'll get a link to today's and you'll get the recording. But if you ever want to kind of look at the previous webinars or what's upcoming, you can come to this page here. It's brightwork.com webinars. And you'll see we've got a nice repository of all the prior webinars there. So there's going to be topics today that we're not going to deep dive into every aspect of project management and the product, but we do have webinars that do deep dives into certain aspects of it. So an example would be project request management. I'm going to touch upon that today, but if you wanted to really go deeper into why project request management is so important, you'll find a webinar in here somewhere. The other thing I just want to point out is the knowledge base. So we have a knowledge base. This is open to all. You don't need to be a customer. It's help365.brightwork.com. And in here, you'll be able to get a lot of good, further, deeper information about the product. So let's look at the agenda here. We're now going to get into the standardized project management templates. And for this, I'm going to first look at this spectrum. So out of the box, all of our customers get all of the starter templates that are currently in the product. And that would include older customers who do upgrades. They'll get whatever new templates we might include. So as of now, in terms of standard project management templates, we have what's in the purple here. So you could see we have a light template. They're kind of descriptive, they kind of speak for themselves the way that we titled them. Some might need a little bit more explanation, but we have a light template. We'll kind of look at that. It's sort of like that start, start evolve. It's a way for some folks in organizations that don't have maybe as much experience with project management to get started quickly. Then you could move it up. You could use a project standard template, which adds a little bit more process to it. Project structured, which has a lot of process around it. It's got all the risk management, all the issue management. We'll take a peek at that. And then we have a couple of, I guess you can call it more purpose-built templates. So we have new product introduction, which would be, let's say, a division or department in your company. They have an idea for a new product and they want to introduce it either internally to the company or maybe to external customers, so they can you can manage that type of a project for the new product using this kind of very specific use case type of a template. And finally, we have product updates. So let's say you have products that are out there and now you want to introduce some updates to that product. It could be software, it could be, you name it, widgets. We do have a specific template for that as well. Now you see a lot of other rows in here, different colors. There's a lot of other things that we're including out of the box with the product. But for today's purposes, we're going to be primarily focusing on these standardized project management templates, and we'll look a bit also at program and portfolio templates that get created. So let's look at some of these live. I'm going to go back here, and well, let me first kind of give you a real brief overview of the product um, before we get into the actual templates. So you can see it starts out with a home screen with some very good statistics or metrics about what's going on in your organization. This happens to be a demo environment, but you can see these automatically derived metrics here. I can click into these and it would take me into the various places in the app. We have some reporting at the top, which I'll get into later. We have requests. So like I mentioned a bit earlier, we do have a whole request management um, aspect to the product, which we won't be diving into today. But we have templates for that as well. People can submit new requests. Now, this would actually be part of your, although it's not on the agenda, it is part of project control as well, because you can kind of argue, I guess, that controlling projects is a heck of a lot easier if you've chosen the right projects to do in the first place. So like I say, it has this module called requests where people can submit their ideas for what they want to do with a new project. And whoever's considered an approver in your organization can say yay or nay. And again, that's a good way. Just controlling the request process is a good way of even controlling the projects later on. I'll just briefly click into one of these requests just to give you a quick look-see here. Now, not all of these tabs, when somebody's first submitting a request, they're not going to have to deal with all of these fields and everything all at once. They kind of expand and grow as you build out the request. This is a probably mostly completed request, not fully completed, but it has a lot of information in here. So there's a lot of field information for people to decide whether or not it should be approved as a request. We have project details, even more information. There's a whole approvals, like automated approvals process behind the scenes, which is really cool. And if you look at one of our other webinars, you can dive deeper into that. You can speak with some of our sales consultants here to kind of get a demo about that. But just know that it is in there. Moving on to projects. So once the request gets approved and a project gets created from that request, you can go into the projects module here. You can see these are all ongoing projects here. We'll come back to this in a moment just to look at the different templates. We have issue views or reports. It brings everything in from all over your system, all the projects, all these issues that are in the, let's say, hundreds of projects that are out there. It filters them all into this nice location here, as well as risks also. So you don't have to go, digging deeply for a needle in a haystack. You can come here, you can filter by keywords, create filters, etc. We'll talk of course, it's on the agenda to talk about issues and risks. We'll get into that. The grand mother of all of the hierarchy of what's going on in the system, you can say that that's at the portfolio level. So every organization would have at least one portfolio. You could have multiple. So if you're thinking of this almost like a hierarchy, this would be at the very, very top, or like an org chart. This would be the biggest box, the top box in the org chart. If I click into it, you can see there's a whole bunch of information about that particular portfolio there. And if we look down here, we can see that there are child programs that are part of that portfolio. If you had multiple portfolios, they would have their own set of child programs. But in this case, we have one, and then we have sort of the next level in the org chart or hierarchy would be these individual programs. These could be organized, it's up to you. It could be departments, you're given department names maybe, or maybe it's a geographical location, entirely up to you. But we could just click into marketing, for example. And we click into this marketing program. At the bottom, you see sort of the bottom layer, so to speak, of the hierarchy, which would be the actual projects themselves. But lots of other, besides the projects that are part of the program, lots of other tabs in here about the program itself, beyond just the list of projects that are there. Okay, with that, I mean, there's of course there's a lot more to the product, but we're not going to have time for all of that. Let's get back to that particular agenda item, and let's look at a project light template, right? So controlling projects using standard templates, project light, for example. So here's one. So again, let's say one way you're going to control projects is by saying these particular project managers or this particular division, maybe they should only create projects that are based on the project light template. And you could see it's fairly simple. You have a project charter for that high level information, fairly static information about the project. We have status tab. We'll get into that a little bit later. We have who's on the team. These are all people who are contributing to the project. We have something called stages. These would be stages of the schedule, really. So if I click stages, it's sort of joined at the hip with our Gantt tab. So even though it's a light template, we do give you robust scheduling capability. So you can see here, it's your typical Gantt type information. On the left, we have a list of hierarchical tasks. They're organized by stages. Stages, otherwise known, some you could refer to it maybe as a parent task or a summary task. But we do let you organize them like that. And then you can see we have sort of a horizontal calendar of what's going on with all the tasks, and you can have dependencies between them. So for example, if this task over here were to get extended for some reason in terms of time, then the start date of the task below it would get pushed out automatically. So that's what these hours are about. You could have other more complex type associations between tasks, but the most popular, I think, would be finish to start. So when the finish date of this is calculated, that'll determine the start date of the task that's underneath. So like I say, even the light template has Gantt. It has a list of all the this my work. Like lucky me, I have no work assigned to me. I wish that were true, but this is just fantasy demo land. In reality, if I clicked on this, you'd see a whole bunch of stuff that's assigned to me. But it's real nice that I can see it all again in one place. So although my task might be spread out throughout all the Gantt stuff, and maybe in another type of project, you'll see there's action items, there's issues, there's risks. I can come to this one handy place and see everything that's assigned to me for this project. And by the way, you could also do it at a global level by clicking on this main nav here. It says my work over here. What that's going to do, really cool, is bring it in from all the 100 projects that I'm assigned work on. So again, I don't have to I don't have to parse through all the individual projects. I could focus my concentration on a particular project like this, or I could look at a global level over here. There's document management. Now, by the way, I'm going through all these tabs. When I get to like the standard template, the structured template, I won't, I won't make you sit through me describing all these tabs again. I'm just going to go over the deltas, whatever's new in that type of a project. So we have a documents tab. This is all documents that are stored in your tenant's SharePoint online library. So but we bring it in here. You don't have to go to that SharePoint interface to look at them. You could just come right here in the project, look at documents, and there they are. But just know that behind the scenes, they are stored within SharePoint Online. And then we have a couple of tabs here that are only going to be present for folks in your organization who have the permission to see these kind of tabs. So if you're a team member, somebody who's only not only but who's they're doing a lot, but they're contributing, they're completing tasks, right? They're a team member. They're not sort of on the managerial side of the project. They're not going to see these two tabs. But if you do have those elevated privileges, then you would see these as well in all of the template types. So we're in the light template, but they do have these settings as well. So we have some administrative things. You can change the portfolio that the project is part of. You can change the child program that it's part of. Um, Mess around with the Microsoft team that's linked to this project. You could something called schedule settings, which is it's a fabulous webinar on its own, but you could actually sort of get granular as to what days of the week is this project can work be assigned on this particular project? What are designated sort of holidays for which project work cannot be scheduled in this project? So you've got that there. And this reset target dates, we'll get that in a minute. That has to do with baselining. Finally, in the slide template, we have approvals. So it's a sophisticated way to kind of manage how a project can get from one stage to the next. You could keep it simple and just leave that in the hands of the project manager. So he or she could say, you know what, we're in plan now, and I determine that we are good to go into the execute phase. Planning is done, which is, not to be taken lightly. Planning's done, I'm going to move it into execute. Or you can say it's not entirely within the control of the project manager. It has to go to some stakeholders, some approvers, who will kind of do like a double check to make sure that it really is ready to go into the execute stage. So this is blank, but you would fill in different people's names, and they would help determine when it can be approved to move into the next stage, and then finally close out. So that's our light template. Let's just look, let's bump it up just in the interest of time. Let's bump it up all the way to structured. There is a standard template, which is kind of like a happy medium between light and structured, but let's take it all the way to there. So you have all the things that we spoke about before, um, status reports, team, all of that stuff. But what we've added to the structured template is an actions tab. So this would be like, it's hard enough keeping track of all your like formal Gantt schedule tasks. So that's why we don't keep it in the light template, although you could add it if you want. But in addition to all those, there's all this other work that kind of goes around the schedule that still needs to get done. It may not have been planned for. It may only take half a day. It might just be like so and so has to order pizza for the lessons learned celebration at the end of the project, but you don't want it to fall under the in the cracks. So you can come here and you can formally assign it. It doesn't affect your schedule, but you could formally assign an action item. It's not just action, not just like plain old action items, which is nice. You could also, let's just see. It could be your generic action. You can be I think this is kind of cool. Like you might want to be a little formal with change requests for the project. So I'm gonna think of something pretty extreme, but maybe widget blue becomes widget green instead. Somebody decides they need to change the color of the widget. Now that's gonna, of course, throw your project for fits, your schedule, your costs, etc. But you want like somebody to be in charge of kind of managing that kind of a change. You could actually assign that change decision, hopefully something a little lighter than that, to a person. You can give it a priority. You could give it a due date. So again, it's not a task. It's a decision needs to be. I'm sorry, a change, or maybe it's just some sort of generic decision that needs to be made. I mean, I love this because it's not enough to just mention it on the side during a meeting. Hey, Bob, at a meeting, we need you. You remember that decision we asked you to decide 2 months ago? It hasn't been done yet. Here you can kind of have more accountability. It's actually everybody sees it. It's Bob needs to make a decision or Bill needs to make a decision. It goes into his work item so he doesn't forget about it. It's just a nice thing beyond Gantt tasks. Let me discard that. And we have the infamous issues, which we'll get into, of course, but that's part of the structured template. We have risk management here. We have costs. We're going to get like costs. Costs we'll talk about briefly. Again, you don't necessarily want this on a light template, right? I mean, if you think tasks are hard to manage, costs kind of amp it up, at least for me. But you could get sophisticated here, give it an approved budget, an overall approved budget. You can say how much has actually been assigned to this project. And then you can actually manage the individual cost items. They get us again. I think the name of the game here is accountability. Even the cost items get assigned to people, and that person needs to track it at that more granular cost level. Again, we have a webinar just about cost, so I don't want to take your time up with digging into it, but just know that it's there. Almost finally, we have a communications tab, which you didn't see in the light template. You might see it in the standard template. And that's just a way to keep track of either an appointment. So it actually integrates with Exchange Online and or whatever they're calling it these days, and sends out invites. You could do that right here from the project. You can send emails right from the project as well and kind of track them within the project. It's going to be in the inboxes as well. Track it there. Phone calls, it doesn't dial, but it's just a way to maybe to log. You can categorize a discussion you had as a phone call. The information doesn't get lost. You can have create sort of a simple rich text note within here, or you can get fancier and create a Microsoft 365 OneNote online for this particular project. It's kind of neat. It creates a notebook for the project. It creates a page for these notes. And again, nothing gets lost. And it's just another example of how you could really ring your Microsoft 365 subscription for all it's worth. That's just one of the integration points. And the project settings we saw already. One thing I'll just mention is there's an audit history also. That's just a way to keep track of all the different changes and who changed it and when did they change. Not every single little bit of data that's in the project, but what you might consider to be the most important pieces of data. You have an audit trail there. So that is that's the standard. That's the structured. I mentioned there's these kind of purpose-built templates as well, like the new product introduction. Let me just click on it. It's going to feel or look very similar to the structured one. The main difference with something like new product introduction would be the fields. So there's different data that you're trying to collect here that you may not, that might, like on the charter tab, for example, and it's going to be worded differently than what you might find in the structured template. It's also going to have different stages. So the naming of the stages across what we call a business process flow, they're going to be worded more appropriately to something like a new product introduction as well. And we have the product update. If I can find it. There we are. Product update's kind of like a cousin to new product introduction. Let's let that come on up. Just thinking about it. So again, very similar to what you've seen before, but the business process flow is going to be different for that also. Typically, we would recommend that the business process flow would manage how you name your stages. It's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. So you could see here, product update. Well, we need a chartering stage, and that's up here as well, execution, etc., etc. Now, before we leave this particular webinar agenda item, I just want to mention, so we have all these starter templates, right? I think I counted 5. But you can have like almost like an unlimited amount of derivative templates from these starter templates. So you could either on your own create a either on your own or with the help of one of our consultants. It's up to you, sort of the level of complexity of what you're trying to achieve. But what you can do is you can make a copy of any of these out of the box templates like project structured. Make a copy. Let me just show you something quickly. We again, if you have elevated privileges, you can go into the templates area of the product. You can go into the project templates section of the templates area. You can say, hey, let's say I really like the project light template that BrightWork gave us, but I want to take it up a notch. It's not exactly up to the level of a standard template. We just want like one additional little element. We want the communications tab, for example, but we don't want all that other stuff. So what you could do, you can make a copy of this project light template, and we're just going to make believe that we're now clicking into the copy. The copy takes just a moment to create. You can create additional project control by, you might have some project managers out there say, we don't want to use Project Light as it is. We want like our own. So you can say, well, we still want to keep some control over this. So what we're going to do for you set of project managers who are asking for this, we're still going to stay standardized, but we're going to create this thing called Project Light Plus, or whatever you want to call it. But still, you're going to have a small amount of people in your organization who are controlling what that Project Light Plus looks like. And the way you do that is like I've said, you create a copy, and then what you could do is come into this nice tab here called Form Configurator. And again, I believe we probably have a webinar that gets more into this, but it's so easy. Like right here in the copy, again, we're making believe it's a copy. We can say, you know what, we do want the communications tab to show up for everybody who's using that template type. I'm not going to do it here because I'll change other people's work, but I could just come in here and put a check in the box for communications, and then really instantaneously, anybody who creates a project from that Project Light Plus template, or even anybody that used the Project Light Plus template in the past, maybe an older version of it, they'll just refresh the page and boom, they've got the communications tab there. Everybody says that it was actually a very bad idea for some reason. Again, those few people who have control over this would come back into the template, simply uncheck that box. And the data doesn't get lost, but the tab disappears and everybody can go on their way. So that's that. So that was standardized project management templates. Let's talk about risk management for just a bit. So let me get back to, not this, let's get back here. Talk about risks. Now you could have risks at any of the hierarchy levels of your system. You can have risks at the project level. You can have sort of more systemic risks maybe at a higher level, at a program level. Let me just show you. So we're at a program. We have a risk tab there. We're not going to click in it here. We'll do it at the project level, but there it is. Just to show you at the portfolio level. If you have a portfolio risk, that's like a very serious risk to keep an eye on, right? Because that means that a risk that's in here, let me just see if there's any samples. A risk that's here would potentially affect every single one of those 100 projects that kind of fall lower in the hierarchy from this uh, grandmother of all of them, the portfolio level. So they're there, but let's go to project level just to kind of dig in a little bit. Widget blue, but after the change request might become widget green. Let's go to risk. Now we're doing risks before issues because risks is done during it's done during the planning stage. So before you kind of shoot the trigger on the starter gun to say, okay, everybody get to work, get busy, start building servers, start doing this and that, start calling up all of your your outside vendors. Before you do any of that, before you lock in the Gantt schedule, you're going to do your risk. Hopefully, you're going to do your risk management, your risk planning is what it really is at this stage. Everybody, again, we have a webinar about this, but I like talking about risk. The project manager gets all of the team members, maybe some stakeholders around it, literally like around a table or a virtual table, wherever you're located. And you say, okay, I want everybody, we're going to go around the room. Everybody tell me all of those things that happened on a similar project that you wish didn't happen. They actually, these terrible things or these issues came to pass. Tell me about it now. We're going to put that on a risk list before we even get started fully on this project. And we're going to manage those risks to hopefully prevent them from becoming real issues that are born later on. So it's easy to create one. Just click on new. Let's just look at let's look at an existing risk. Again, we're at the project level. So lots of great data that you can collect about this. I'll call it a potential issue or present risk to the project in the future. This is called production equipment may malfunction. There's a lot of information there. You don't have to fill it in. You fill it in with what you're comfortable with. But you can say, I guess the most important pieces would be to assign a risk monitor to it. So we give you that opportunity here. The risk monitor is going to be the one who keeps an eye on this throughout until you have that pizza party at the end of the project. They are going to keep an eye on this risk at the different stages of the project once it's been in execution to see, like, are we coming real close to this risk actually happening? I guess a bad example, but the only one I could think of at the moment is maybe you're in a hurricane or typhoon prone location, and you put down as a risk, right? Your server room might get flooded, or your power plants might get flooded, and all of a sudden everybody's watching the weather forecast, and you see that there is a risk out there in the Pacific, Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, what have you, and you could literally see it coming closer and closer to your location. It's the risk monitor who's keeping an eye on that. And what they're probably going to do at that stage is activate, so to speak, whoever's assigned. In this case, it's the same person, but we're going to make believe that the mitigation action assignee is going to be a different person. That's the person who's going to implement processes to reduce the exposure to this risk and minimize the likelihood of any issues uh, occurring, at least to like what I would call an acceptable threshold level. So they can't stop the hurricane from coming or the typhoon, right? But they can certainly mitigate the effects of it. So that person is going to, I guess, make sure that the backup generators, which are hopefully located higher ground, are ready to go, et cetera, et cetera. So the monitors going to have some pretty serious discussions with the mitigation person. And then finally, again, it's going to probably, hopefully for this person, it'll be a different person, or maybe not. You'll have a contingency assignee. So this is like, okay, it happened. We can't mitigate it anymore. We need a contingency plan. Like we're going to turn on those generators or what have you. So that like now it's like really getting, it's about to become an issue. Contingency person tries to prevent it at that last sort of towards the last moments from becoming an actual issue. So again, this can all be done at the project level. If you're in the project itself and you say, you know what, this isn't just limited to this one project, maybe it's like a program level risk. So they could just really easily come in here and just say, you know what, I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to bump it up to the program level. They'll just click that. And now it has visibility at the program level. So when you look at program level type reports or views, you'll see that risk there as well. Okay, enough about risks. Looking at the clock. Um, a risk that is that gives birth to an issue, or maybe you just have an issue arise that you didn't even think about, even though you planned as well as you could. Maybe something out of the blue comes up for an actual issue. So project is in execution. These are something happened, a problem occurred that's going to affect either the quality or the scope or the cost or whatever else there is about the project. So we do allow for issue management as well within the project. Let me just go back to our blue project. You'll see there's an issues tab there. It's going to be very similar. It's kind of like a cousin to a risk. Very similar information. If I click on new issue, what's kind of nice, what I want you to see here is we don't bombard you with all those like more than a dozen fields in the very beginning. We kind of, it opens up with a quick form, and this is true for risks as well. A quick form just to get the important information, including, of course, who is it assigned to this issue. But then once you fill out the information for the issue and it's already there, then you can click into it later. And you'll see there's even more fields that are relevant, probably a little bit later in the timeline than when you're first creating the issue. So there it is. We have issue management as well. And again, this is whoever's assigned this issue, whoever's assigned the risk, it's going to show up on their My Work report as well. So that again, from the dozen projects to which they're lucky them, they've been assigned all of these different issues to manage. They can easily find it by going to there. There's also besides the My Work report, I just want to show you in terms of risks and issues. There's also these dashboards here. So this is request dashboard, but if I click down, you'll see that we have a risk dashboard. So if you want to get it, if you're doing your risk planning appropriately, you'll probably have quite a bit of content in these dashboards. So it's just another way to look at it, right? It's not just a list of things that are going on. It's a nice graphical display or chart display of all these different it's all these like knobs that you can turn, with regards to risk, all this little tweaking of what you want to focus on. Do I want to look at the risk by exposure? Exposure being, if it's a level 1 exposure, it's a little bit less likely to occur or maybe a little bit less of an impact on the project, so lower priority maybe. If it's a 10, that's like, well, no, sorry, those are 10 risks that have an exposure level of 4. If it's a 9, this is your exposure level 9, that means like this thing's about to turn, it's about to give birth to the issue. So it's very important to see, for example, there are 5 that are at a level 9. Let's just look at issues. The same kind of deal when it comes to issues. Again, we don't want to belabor the point too much, but there are charts that are also all about issues. Let's move on to the last bit of this agenda, which is status reporting. Status reporting. Let's get to that. So at the project level, at the program level, and at the portfolio level, you can do status reporting, but we're just going to look at the project level here. So let's go back to what seems to be my favorite project here, Widget Blue. We do have status report capabilities here. Before you go ahead and create a status report, you would, the project manager would come to the status tab, and they would decide at this exact moment, what's the different key performance indicators for this particular project. Are we looking not so good in terms of our time commitments? Yes, we are. In terms of scope, yes, we are as well. Now that time commitment one, just to kind of backtrack just for a moment, I want to talk about the baselining aspect of the Gantt. So you can see here, we're not doing too well with time. I'm just going to click on the Gantt. Now, after all your planning was done, after all the planning for this project was done, everybody kind of, the project manager looked around the room, everybody nodded their head. They can say we all feel good about the schedule, and then the project manager would have baselined it. But you can see here, and the baseline is indicated by an orange bar over here. The baseline showing when we thought this project would be completed. You can see, and then the other bar here is where it's currently tracking to. So you can see our baseline is we're way past when we thought we're going to be done with this project. And you can see the individual task level, they're all looking pretty bad, right? We thought that this particular task would be done in the March timeframe, and that's already been kicked out for some reason. So the baseline is we're way off, and that's why if you looked at the status tab, the time, probably I would make it red at this point because it's so bad. Um, let's just go back here. Whoops, back here. So you might want to make it, at this moment, we might say, you know what, our time is looking real bad. You could have scope. Again, if you were to change this from widget blue to widget green, you'd probably make scope red as well. So status reporting begins at the status tab. And then when whatever your cadence is for creating an actual status report, you'd click on status report. These are historical status reports. They're saved here. You would just click on new status report here. It's automatically bringing in the data from that status tab. You can see time is red, scope is red, unfortunately. It brought all those in, they're locked, right? They're locked and loaded, ready to go, ready to be communicated to stakeholders. You can save it as a draft, but if you're ready, if you're definitely ready to communicate this not so good status, you would first decide, do you want to email the report to a sponsor? Probably a good idea. You don't want this bad news to be a surprise or hidden, right? You need to expose it, be transparent. Email report to sponsor, you probably want the whole team to know, right? Everybody needs, they probably know already. You might want to include some additional recipients. You'd put their email addresses in there. And then when you're ready to click, you kind of cover your eyes because it's not such a good report. And well, you would uncover your eyes, click complete status report, and then just wait for the emails to flow in of people saying, huh, what's going on here? But again, better that they know sooner rather than later. I'm going to discard this. The email that they would get for that most recent current status report would look like this. So this is just an example of an inbox email. Because I clicked, email this person, that person, and I said that it's no longer a draft. This went out to everybody. It's got some good information, and we're probably in the execution stage. This is just an example of where we're still in the planning stage. Some good information that people don't have to dig for. This is not a status report for what we just looked at. This is a different project. You can see it's also not doing too hot either. Um, these are all the KPIs and an explanation of why things aren't going so well. So that's an email that went out, but just so you know, you don't have to just rely on the email. Anybody can come to this project at any time and click in to the historical status reports and see what's up over there. To finalize the live demo portion, I just want to show you that there are plenty of reports about that are about status reporting, right? So there's all this good stuff I just showed you now. There's dashboards, right? So there's anybody can come in here and look at, you could obviously look at it. This is status of a sort, right? How many issues are there? How many open issues are there for the different projects? If I want to get real detail, like, okay, which projects have 8 open issues that are in progress? I can click on this bar over here, and it would show me a list of actually, what's going on behind the scenes that we derived at this number 8. So these are called Power Apps charts, right? So you don't need to have a Power BI extra license from Microsoft to see anything that I've showed you so far. However, if you chose to purchase the optional Power BI licensing from Microsoft, not from us, you will have access to these additional Power BI reports. I just want to keep it to status reporting for now. So I'm going to click into this Power BI report here, and as quickly as I can, I mean, there's plenty of different tabs and lots of good Power BI information going on. But let's just click on project status dashboard here. This is more relevant to what we're talking about right now. I choose the project that I want to focus on with colorful dashboard information. In this case, it's Acme Solution Deployment. And look at all the good stuff we have going here. We have the KPIs here. We have a chart that talks about all the different statuses of tasks. You can see all of the different work that's assigned to folks down here for this one particular project. A different representation of it over here. These are all the assignments by type, right? You have some action items we talked about. There's some issues. There's of course going to be different Gantt project tasks assigned as well. And if I were to click into these, it would just drill down even further to really see how these charts and how these KPIs are derived. So that is the Power BI. Now, whether we include the Power BI reports as part of your license, as part of the product for everybody. But to be able to actually use the Power BI reports, that's where this optional extra Power BI licensing to Microsoft comes into play. So with that, let me go back. Oops, sorry. Go back to our slide deck. Just a quick recap, right? We looked at project management templates. This is the spectrum. You'll see this in the deck that you get probably tomorrow. So and it's also online in the knowledge base. That's the templates. We talked about risk management, all the wonderful fields you can fill in, and of course, don't forget to assign the risk to people. The baseline of project, this would be an example of a healthy project where the planned baseline, the orange line, is matching where the tasks are currently tracking. So good for them. Issue management we looked at. Again, you assign it to folks, fill in all the good information. And status reporting. There's just one little piece of status reporting, right? There's the actual status report, but there's all these different views and dashboards that we looked at as well.
I have a question just about the templates that you showed earlier. I guess most of our customers would start with that project light just to get themselves off the ground. Would I be right in saying that?
Oh, I mean, it's spread all over the place, but
Really?
yeah, it's definitely a popular one to get started with, at least maybe for particular divisions within an organization. There could be another division that's well on their way and they want to use, any of those other templates.
And then I guess people would move. They could move from project light, but they don't have to go from project to standard to structured. They can do whatever they want, or maybe they'd be happy with project light and they could make some changes with the form configurator as you showed.
Exactly, which is nice. That's right. They can decide 3 months in, you know what, we really need to manage issues more formally. So let's just check a box and there it is.
And the form configurator is very easy. They don't need to get into the weeds and that kind of thing.
That's right.
And just on access, you said that you don't need everything you showed today. You don't need extra licenses for Power BI. That's just kind of Power Apps.
Right. They need licensing from us, of course. They need some licensing from Microsoft 365. We have not talking about the Power BI yet, but they need some other Microsoft 365 licenses, which we detail on our website.
Sure.
And then the option, the customers have the option to maybe bump up the Microsoft licensing to include Power BI, but that's optional.
I got you. Folks, I'm just going to share a quick, as I said earlier, here is the link for Adam's calendar. If it is something that you wanted to do and you wanted to chat to us more about it, but please keep an eye out for Adam's email tomorrow, where we will share the recording of what we showed today. And we'll also share the slides that we use and a bit of extra information. And feel free to watch it back. I know we looked at a lot today. Share it with your colleagues, and if you do have any more questions, please do send them on to us, and we can address whatever you need as quick as we possibly can. We're just coming up to the hour, folks, so I think it's as good a time as any to take a little break and let you get on with your day. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I also want to thank Jonathan for a wonderful presentation. And hopefully we'll be chatting to you all very, very soon. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.